What's up everyone, another day, another slay, and I hope yours is going okay. Today is going to be kind of interesting, for me at least, because I'm covering a YouTuber whose content I actually watch pretty regularly, and whom I think for the most part makes some pretty good shit, and that content creator is ENDYMION. Let me make that once again very clear. I like this content creator. I think he leans a little too heavily into the anti-woke crowd sometimes, especially more recently, to the point where it kind of borders on being cringe, but hey, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do to get that bag, I guess. But the video today we're going to be covering, I think, is just kind of made in ill will. Basically, it's a rant on the reviews of Tears of the Kingdom, where he tries to say the game isn't being reviewed fairly when he hasn't even played the damn game yet, and to cap it all off, he tries to go off that dog shit Gfinity review of the game to prove that it's overrated, which I know I haven't really had time to cover that review yet, but I guess this video will kind of be like a 2-for-1 thing, because a third of his video today is what Gfinity was saying about the game, so just enough talking and let's see what YouTube has shout out today.
What's up everyone, it's ENDYMION, and as you are definitely aware, the new Zelda game is now out in the wild, and I'm sure fans are devouring it for all it's worth this very second. While the new Zelda game is likely going to sell millions and be showered with praise, I feel like I'm alone in my viewpoint when it comes to Nintendo at large. Also, if you're wondering why the footage in this video is reversed, well, there's a reason for that, because Nintendo is notoriously anal as hell when it comes to content being made about their games.
Yeah, but I don't think they're gonna care that you put, like, a trailer? What? Yeah, like, they're fucking anal when it comes to piracy and using their IPs and shit, but I've gotten away with using emulated gameplay of Breath of the Wild on here. I know a ton of other people have too, but alright, this is pointless, just continue.
And to ensure I don't get copyright striked, I have to jump through various hoops like reversing my footage, color grading it, and more.
If you get false copyright struck, just bitch and moan to bigger YouTubers. It's literally just free clout. I don't know why people get so pissed off over it. Like, my false copyright strike with JTech, like, what? That doubled my channel size, I think? I don't even fucking know because it was such a long time ago. But yeah, anyways, I don't know. It's never really that big of a deal to me.
To be honest, as I'm making this video, I'm not even sure if what I'm showing you right now will be good enough to appease Nintendo's content overlords. Maybe I should just zoom in randomly at times in order to trick the AI so I don't get copyright struck, which, as you can imagine, for someone who makes a living off of YouTube, this kind of nonsense is as annoying as it gets.
Okay, I know I keep interrupting about like completely unrelated shit, but like, why the fuck would you make your living off of YouTube? Are you some fucking masochist? Especially when you're only at like what, a little over 100k subs? The fuck? I'm sorry, that's just fucking dumb. YouTube barely pays the people who have 1 million subs a sustainable amount, and you're trying to live off of what they give you for 100k? You gotta be living in some fucking cardboard box at that point. I'm not even making fun of him, I just straight up feel bad for him.
But I'll just cut right to the chase. Look, Nintendo kinda sucks. I know that claim has been said in the past, but it's really how I feel. They're a company responsible for the nostalgia of millions. Yet they feel backwards when it comes to how modern day content creation is made.
I mean, not really for the most part. Like, don't get me wrong, everything Nintendo is doing, from like canceling the esports events because they use emulators, to suing the shit out of people for figuring out how to jailbreak the Switch, to copyright striking people, re-uploading the soundtracks for their games, and all the other shit I'm missing, yeah, they're fucking insane and need to chill the fuck out. But when it comes to like straight content creation, like the games they're putting out, I'd say honestly they're at the top of their fucking game right now. Like, the Switch has had some of the most consistently great games come out for it out of any console in the last 10 years. They're ass backwards how they put out their consoles, absolutely. Like, a massive reason for the Steam Deck's success is because Nintendo has refused to put out more of their legacy games on their console from the GameCube and Wii generations, have N64 games locked behind a $50 paywall, and have refused to make a Switch Pro. So Valve is over here like, hey, buy a Steam Deck and play all those games you want to play on your Switch for free if you've bought them in the past, and probably run them even better. I mean, you could kind of say they're ass backward when it comes to their games, but personally, fuck. I mean, you could kind of say they're ass backwards when it comes to their games, but personally, I think that's a really good thing. Like, look at how polished Tears of the Kingdom came out in, or like how easy it would be to monetize the fuck out of the Splatoon games, but they haven't done that. I know, the bar in the industry is so fucking low that I'm praising developers for not being the worst fucking thing ever when it comes to making games. But like, that's where we are right now. God, this generation has been dog shit. But yeah, they're complete shit with everything except for their content creation.
But beyond that nonsense, I genuinely feel that there is what I can only describe as Nintendo bias going on when it comes to Tears of the Kingdom's reviews.
Okay, I kind of see where you're coming from, because in my eyes, there isn't a single unbiased review. Pretty much everybody is predetermined to like specific things and not like others, especially if what they're reviewing has had a lot of hype surrounding it. But to say that the reviews for Tears of the Kingdom are biased because it's Nintendo is completely fucking wrong. Let me take you back 6 months ago to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Those games got trashed by everybody, and for good reason, because they're a complete fucking mess. So what did they get? A 72. Maybe a little high, but that's just kind of how Metacritic is. Anything under an 80 on Metacritic usually means the critics think it's either mid or just shit. And if you think it's a Zelda thing, well, let me take you back to 2.5 years ago to Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, a game that I thought was actually pretty good and honestly really fun. Got a 78. The reviewers aren't biased because it's Nintendo. If anything, they've been more harsh on this game than Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild was so fucking good and this game had some really big shoes to fill. Let me tell you this, if the reviewers were biased because of Nintendo or because it's Zelda, don't you think the reviews would all have the same number score? Like, the same reviewer would give the same score to every single Nintendo or Zelda game that came out? So where is that? Because I'm not seeing it. Does Tears of the Kingdom have problems? Absolutely. The dungeons, while the bosses are better and the look of them is better, the designs of them are still very basic and probably the second worst Zelda dungeon in the series. The story is once again literally all over the place, and this time is even more poorly written than Breath of the Wild. But the puzzle design, the freedom, the exploration, and the creativity allowed for the player in this game is so fucking good that personally, I think it overshadows all those flaws tenfold. Should they still be brought up in the reviews? Absolutely. And it is. Again, it has a 95, which I think is pretty fair for this game. There are still reviewers giving the game 10s, which is a problem, but I think that's just a problem with the number review scale thing in general, because everybody has a different idea of what a 10 out of 10 is, plus a bunch of other shit that I might cover in its own video. But no, these reviewers are not biased because it's Nintendo. You haven't even played the fucking game yet, so how would you know? The whole ideology of a review score is just broken in general.
And later on in the video, I'll cover what one review site said about Kingdom, and they did not give it a glowing review, and the internet is seething.
No, I think it's more so what they've said about the game and what games they've given the same number score to that tells me their review is bullshit, but he talks about the Gfinity review later, so I'm gonna keep you guys in suspense with that.
But first, obviously, reviews went live, the game got 10 out of 10 everywhere basically, and Nintendo fans are yet again frothing at the mouth for Kingdom. And even though I consider myself a Nintendo fan as well, since I was basically born, I've always found the way their games review to be strangely biased. There's a few game franchises out there that I genuinely believe get preferential treatment from gaming review sites. Some include the God of War games, basically anything from Rockstar like Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead Redemption, and the main attraction Nintendo franchises like Mario or Zelda.
Oh, did you forget FromSoft? Like, how many FromSoft games haven't scored poorly when they absolutely should have? Like, is Dark Souls 2 really a 91 out of 100? I don't think so. But again, if you think these reviewers are biased, I mean, you gotta keep
that same energy.
Like, by your own logic, wasn't Elden Ring reviewed with a ton of bias? Exactly. You see how flawed this ideology is? Because critics liked a game by the developer that a lot of people didn't. I guess all of their reviews of the games by that developer from that point forward are biased. It's so fucking stupid.
Whenever a new game in one of these franchises comes out, it's like reviewers go from doing their jobs to just becoming fanboys, and they just start slinging 10s like it's candy. A great example of this, and yeah, I'm reversing the footage again, is Skyward Sword. When I originally played that game, I bought a Wii for $100 a few years after it first came out, and I bought Skyward Sword with it since I hadn't played a proper Zelda game in a while. The reviews for Skyward Sword gave the game a glowing reception, calling it the best Zelda game ever for its time and being a masterpiece worthy of the series. It has a 93 on Metacritic and has the coveted must-play sticker slapped on it to really make you understand how great it is.
So I'm skipping past this whole part because it's basically like a 4-minute rant on Skyward Sword, which I never finished Skyward Sword, so there really isn't that much I can say on it. I mean, I liked what I played of it, but again, apparently it gets way worse in the later game, so I'm not going to say much on it. But basically, his point is, in the past, he thinks reviewers were biased towards that game because it had a lot of flaws, which from what he says about the game, yeah, it definitely does seem like it. But like it is with Breath of the Wild for me, it's probably the same with the critics, where the other stuff in the game that was good was so good that it overshadowed the bad stuff in the game tenfold. Another thing I wanted to mention here, since I'm skipping this part, but he brings up the number score for the game and only the number score. Endymion, my guy, why are you doing this to me? You're pulling a fucking quantum TV. You should never go out and spend your money on anything based on the fucking number alone. Come on, my 17-year-old ass should not have to teach basic fucking financing to a guy who has 100k subs on YouTube and seems to be in his late 20s to early 30s. Holy shit. Instead of looking at the number people gave the game and buying the game, how about you look at the reviews themselves and see what problems people had with the game? Now, if the reviewers never mentioned the problems with the game at all in their reviews, sure, you can say they were biased and gave the game a high score because it's Nintendo. But if they brought up those problems and you still went out and bought the game, I'm sorry, you have nobody to blame but yourself here.
Breath of the Wild was given even more praise and was yet again scored almost perfectly across the board, with review sites citing it was yet again the best game ever made and was a masterpiece. Recently, GQ magazine asked a bunch of people who work in video games to compile a list of the best 100 games of all time. Among this list was Mass Effect 2 at number 6, The Witcher 3 at 5, Bloodborne at 4, Tetris at 3, which, I mean, I get how important it was to gaming and all that, but Tetris is better than Bloodborne? Get out of here, come on. Then The Last of Us at second place, which blows my mind, cause remove that game's cutscenes and all you're left with is a standard third-person shooter. And of course, number 1, as you probably guessed, was Breath of the Wild. Now, I had a different experience with this particular game since I got a Switch about a month after it launched and yet again got a Zelda game along with it. I was skeptical because I was worried I was going to be burned like I was a few years back with the travesty that was Skyward Sword. Thankfully, I was pleasantly surprised, and I genuinely found Wild to be a great game.
Yeah, so I'm skipping past this part too because it's just him talking about Breath of the Wild and saying exactly what everybody else has said about the game, where it's overall really good, but the world feels dead, the dungeons are bad, the bosses are bad, and the story is bad. There, I saved you like 2 minutes of your time. You're welcome.
Which brings us to Tears of the Kingdom, the newest nostalgia-big Nintendo game on the market. Apparently, it addresses a lot of my complaints with Wild and opens up the map to the sky and beyond. It all sounds very enticing, but strangely enough, I'm just not excited about it. Based on the footage I've seen of the game, it looks like a massive expansion for Breath of the Wild. It still runs at 30 FPS, which is, well, not ideal, especially by today's standards. And as someone who plays primarily on my PS5, the concept of playing a game in 2023 that has load times, it's a huge turnoff for me. I know.
Well, what? There's a bunch of other games that have load times. What the fuck are you talking about? Shit, fucking Elden Ring has load times. Even on an SSD, whenever I fast travel, I still have to load into shit for like probably 4 or 5 seconds. It's not even like Zelda's load times are that long either. They're like 20 seconds at most and only happen when you're loading into the game upon startup or going into a shrine or fast traveling, which like every other game has. I don't know how this is a problem. I'm sorry. Like 30 FPS, talk shit about it all you want at this point. I don't really think it's fair toward the game because it's running as best as it possibly can on the dog shit hardware Nintendo has put out and refuses to update, but yeah, 30 FPS is an actual problem. But load times? What? So Spider-Man is bad now because it has loading screens? Or shit, what the fuck do you think of Red Dead 2 or GTA? That shit takes like a solid 2 fucking minutes to load in, even on an SSD.
That sounds weird to Nintendo fans, but honestly, I think that's only because they're used to playing on an outdated hardware almost exclusively. I remember even playing Pokemon Scarlet last year and being amazed with how low the bar of quality was for Nintendo fans when it comes to opening their wallets. Part of me, honestly, kind of wants to wait for the new inevitable Nintendo hardware before I even try Kingdom. Because the idea of playing a game that large that likely needs constant loading on a dated 30 frame locked Switch, well, it doesn't sound ideal. In a long laundry list of problems I have with Nintendo, from being ass backwards when it comes to content creation or selling remasters of average at best games at full price, I just find Nintendo's reluctance to harness the power of modern technology to be one of its biggest problems. A Zelda game at 60 frames on a console as powerful as the PS5 would be literally god tier. But by the time Nintendo games reach that level of power, I'll likely be married with kids with a head full of gray hair. And by then we'll likely be beyond today's conveniences to even greener pastures with Nintendo, always unfortunately playing catch up when it comes to technology. Of course, power isn't everything, and really it's creativity and passion that determines whether a game is good or not, which I'm sure Kingdom is. But how long until Kingdom inevitably becomes the best game of all time until it's dethroned again by the next Zelda game? In my opinion, I think Zelda is genuinely unfairly reviewed and is given higher praise simply because of nostalgia and brand recognition. I firmly believe Nintendo could release an expansion for Tears that's 3 to 5 hours long with no story and one new dungeon, and review sites will just slap 10 out of 10 because it's Zelda.
Okay, well let's test that. We can look at Breath of the Wild's DLC for reference here. A DLC that I think is actually really fucking good and adds like an extra 10 hours of content to the game at minimum. Honestly, one of the best DLCs I've ever played for a game. It's insanely challenging and I fucking love it. What did it get on Metacritic? Well, they released it in 2 parts with an 81 and the other with a 78, but when combined together it's a 79.5. That's actually like average for Metacritic terms. And keep in mind, this, at least in my opinion, is like one of the best DLCs for a game I have ever played. Like Ancient Gods levels of good, and it's got a 79.5. Yeah, fucking right. And he's trying to say there's bias for Zelda and Nintendo when it comes to reviews. Just shut the fuck up at this point. You're embarrassing yourself.
The only review I genuinely read about Kingdom was from Gfinity.
Get up, cocksuckers, it's all over. Listen, we had a rough couple of months.
No, please don't make me talk about Gfinity. I avoided talking about the review for a reason. It's so fucking bad. Don't make me do this.
Who scored Kingdom a 6 out of 10. Not only will this review get the staff harassed by Nintendo fans, which yet again adds to how I think Nintendo fans are kind of insufferable when it comes to these things.
It's not the fact that they gave it a 6. If you think the game is a 6 out of 10 because you don't like it and can find some actual reasons that it's a 6, pop off. It's what they said, and the fact that Forspoken has the same fucking score!
I just want to talk to him.
Wait, why do you have a shotgun?
I just want to talk to him.
Dad, this is ridiculous!
I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him.
It is not his fault.
I just want to
It
shoot
was
him.
an
I
accident.
just want to talk to him.
You can't shoot him!
Wait, what are you doing?
But the problems Gfinity had with the game will be drowned out by the robotic droning of entranced Nintendo fanboys who believe their nostalgia company can do no wrong.
No, because their problems with the game are just shit. Like, read the fucking review. If you played the game, click off the video and read Gfinity's review and look at what they fucking complain about. It's like they played the game avoiding all of the new content, which they probably did from what they say in it. It's just so fucking bad.
Gfinity says in their review that Hyrule is largely the same as Breath of the Wild, yet even though Nintendo reused an entire game map, that obviously didn't affect scores.
Yes, because they added 2 new maps, both adding a completely new gameplay element and form of exploration that Breath of the Wild couldn't dream of having, new abilities that completely change how you solve puzzles, has all new shrines now being more than Breath of the Wild had even with its DLC, has all new dungeons, a new story, and they changed the base game's map a lot, to the point where it's honestly unrecognizable unless you're looking at it in a side-by-side comparison. But nope, they reused the map, copy and paste, DLC, overrated. God, these reviews are actually starting to fucking break me at this point. It's like if I was trying to say that Elden Ring was overrated because it reused bosses for some of the optional ones. Like, what the fuck? That's the dumbest logic I've ever heard.
Gfinity says, and I quote, "Right out of the gate, I'll say that Hyrule is largely the same as you left it. After Link and Zelda get a little bit too Indiana Jones for their own good, some characters have moved around, but some of your favorite NPC hotspots may now be teeming with monsters. For the most part, it's the exact same biodiverse world you explored all those years ago."
It's not even that, because the world feels so much more alive compared to Breath of the Wild now. NPCs have a day and night schedule, they'll go across the map fighting camps of enemies like there's an actual war going on and ask you to help them with fighting the enemies. They'll need help fixing their carriages and for you to take them where they need to go. Like, I don't know how people manage to complain that this game has the same map as the first game. It's so fucking stupid to me. And not to mention, there's all the enemies doing new shit too.
Only with more natural caves, a sprawling underground chasm, and frankly, too many rock formations in the sky to really care about.
So, Hyrule isn't changed, but there's too many new islands in the sky that you don't want to explore them? What the fuck? You see what I'm talking about? This is what I mean. They did not explore any of the new maps whatsoever. They barely mentioned the depths, which is like a third of the game. Same with the Sky Islands, because there's quote-unquote too many. Like, Jesus Christ, this is fucking awful. What dumbass in their right mind let you review this shit?
New tales are spun throughout it, yet each one has a disappointing air of familiarity. Breath of the Wild's fiddly controls are pushed further to the breaking point. all in an effort to stack more systems on top of those that split the fanbase almost as much as Toon Link. The biggest issue with the pre-release marketing push is the classic dungeon debate. For longtime Zelda fans, the condensing of the traditional dungeon format for Breath of the Wild is ultimately what dampened the experience, and Tears of the Kingdom does too little to address those concerns. In fact, mere days before release, a poorly worded or translated tweet referencing an interview-style discussion with the developers convinced hundreds of thousands that dungeons were larger than that of the last game. They're not. In raw surface area maybe, but in terms of length and complexity, no. And that's heartbreaking. Dungeons in Tears of the Kingdom fall much closer to the condensed approach of Breath of the Wild's Divine Beasts. They may be titled like traditional dungeons, but walk through their doors and you'll be met with the find X number of doohickeys objective that can easily be completed in under an hour without much thought.
Okay, that's the one thing I'll give them. The dungeons are still shit. Improved, but still shit. That's the only thing they get right in their entire review.
There's frankly too much going on, with no real prizes for bothering to seek out the opportunities.
There's progression shit with the light orbs, I think they're called, and they do the same thing as in the first game with increasing your stamina and health. And then there's the Korok seeds, which expand your inventory. Aside from progression shit, there's new weapons, materials, and new clothes with different effects. That's standard open world shit, and if you don't like that, you're playing the wrong fucking game.
The world doesn't feel barren per se, but the rewards for exploring it are virtually non-existent or largely inconsequential. A surprise fight with a dragon is always appreciated, but when the reward is just another shrine, my enthusiasm to explore takes a nosedive.
Yeah, but like 9 times out of 10, that shrine you get after doing a really hard challenge will get you a really good piece of clothing that'll be super helpful to you later, along with helping you toward the next stamina or health increase. If that's not enough for you, again, you're playing the wrong game.
Koroks and their bag upgrades remain virtually meaningless due to the returning throwaway combat mechanics.
What the fuck does this even mean? Like you'll always have a space for new weapons? I don't know about you, but I'm always running out of space and I'm pretty sure I have like double the item slots at this point. But whatever, everybody has had their own experience playing this game.
Heart containers and stamina upgrades are still limited to shrines that are rarely hard to find. Most chests simply contain weapons you probably don't need. On paper, having a million different ways to solve an in-game dilemma sounds great. In practice, it makes swaths of content redundant, leaving little left but a story that takes far too long to advance. A good puzzle is always fun to solve, but when the world is littered with the things, a pat on the back isn't enough of a reason to seek them out. Seeking out your first dungeon reveals enough story to have you whipping out the Hyrule Historia, but the next 3 barely move the needle, leaving you wondering if the next act is even worth the effort. The stakes feel a tad cartoonish with everyone managing to make do with the regional phenomenon your task was solving, and the voice work still isn't a decision I can agree with when there are so many NPCs out there still rocking the amusing efforts from the franchise's traditionally near silent cast.
Yeah, but there's traditional cutscenes now that are like flashbacks, and I guarantee you there would be bitching that they weren't voice acted if the game had released like that. Like look at Supernova's bitching in my last video for more context. He was mad that they didn't have voice acting for everybody in the game. Shit was so fucking stupid. Who cares? It's voice acting.
Tears of the Kingdom, however, could almost erase any reason to play Breath of the Wild.
No, because again, I said it somewhere before, Breath of the Wild's puzzles and exploration is different enough from Tears of the Kingdom's puzzles and exploration that there's still a reason to go back and play Breath of the Wild even after Tears of the Kingdom has come out.
No matter where it sits on your list, nobody should want that. But the only thing you'd really miss is a sliver of the wider story that could be summarized in a single paragraph. End quote. None of this surprises me, and it's annoying to be proven right that yet again the story doesn't do much new and a lot of the optional content is just pointless busy work. But it's interesting how many review sites don't say any of these things and instead just praise Nintendo constantly because it's Zelda. After all, like I said in a video months back, there is bias in the gaming community. Remember that people like Audrey Drake at IGN used to give glowing reviews to Nintendo games only to work for them in the future.
What? What the fuck does that even mean? So she liked their games and decided she wanted to go work for them? Okay. What, are you trying to put out some tinfoil hat conspiracy that she was secretly working for Nintendo the whole time and giving high review scores to all their games?
And on the flip side, you have Kotaku, which got blacklisted by Nintendo, which was hilarious, and one of their editors even posted a picture with Nazi flags that I can't show on YouTube in protest of Nintendo. I also can't show you what he said because he blocked me on Twitter because Kotaku staff is about as tough as a napkin. Regardless, in the end, I just always view Nintendo first-party reviews with a heavy dose of skepticism, because the likelihood that every new Zelda is suddenly the new standard is just not true.
I mean, yeah, you're right there. Not every Zelda game has completely revolutionized gaming, like shit like the original, or A Link to the Past, or Ocarina of Time, or Breath of the Wild did. But that doesn't mean they're not pretty much all absolutely fucking phenomenal games. Like, yeah, Skyward Sword obviously seems to have its flaws, but from what people have said, that game also has the most well-designed dungeons in the entire series, along with the best story in the series. Also, I just think the watercolor art style is so fucking cool, especially in the HD remaster. Not to mention, has anybody really been out here pretending like all these games have revolutionized gaming? I don't really think so. I mean, maybe with those 4 exceptions I named, because, I mean, they did, but like, all the other games critics just say are just really good games. Skyward Sword, maybe? But even still, that was because that game was kind of revolutionary with its motion controls and how people thought that was the direction the industry was going at the time with them. Everything else, people just say they're like really good games, which they are. But yeah, that's basically the end of his video. But holy shit, that was bad. I don't know how someone who made a video as based as the Why Western Developers Are Angry at Elden Ring's Success video to this of all things, where he just doesn't understand how games are reviewed. But if there's one thing I think we can all agree on, is that the true villain of this story isn't Endymion or even Gfinity. Well, kind of Gfinity. It's the number review system. It is so fucking broken. You cannot explain whether you will like something or not using a fucking number. But yeah, I'm done. Make sure to like, subscribe, join my Discord, follow my Twitter. If you really liked the video, you can become a member and give me money. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a great day. And what are you going to do? Ha!